I'm Joseph.
And I'm Nick.
And this is Fish Jelly.
All right.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm okay. It's Saturday.
It is.
We don't normally record on Saturday.
No, but there's a family function.
But there's a lot happening tomorrow. So I thought it might make sense to, for once, get my head in the game. Okay. Do it early. Mm-hmm. As the iconic actor Zac Efron said in High School Musical.
You know, I've never seen High School Musical.
The only reason I know that is at work, someone had given me like a buzzer that when you hit it, it says, get your head in the game. And it's like a High School Musical merch thing.
Oh, okay.
But that's my reference.
I think I remember the month we started dating, you had a birthday, and in the theaters that weekend was Saw 5. What you wanted to see, you gave me a choice between Saw 5 and High School Musical 3.
And guess what Nick chose?
I chose Saw 5, having only the last Saw movie I had seen prior to that was the first one.
Oh, well, I think a good secret movie would be High School Musical then.
Oh, God. Sure. I mean, when you get to choose, sure.
When I get to choose. Because you're not choosing it. You're so difficult. Well,
no, I have a list of things that I want to...
I had said I don't want to talk about the Supreme Court decision on Roe v. Wade, just because it's still very upsetting to me, even though we already knew because of leaked documents. It's just depressing to me.
Yeah.
So I don't personally want to say much about it, except because then I just go on the rant I always go on. Mm-hmm. But you know what we could talk about? When was the first time you understood what abortion was, and do you recall like what you thought about it?
You know, God, like where I think that I'd heard the term, many times, but actually like putting together what that actually meant for a woman was probably when I saw Citizen Ruth.
How old were you?
Well, I was in 6th grade, and my parents had rented it.
Starring Laura Dern.
Starring Laura Dern, the directorial debut of Alexander Payne. And then kind of, I grew up, I guess, in a Christian household, but my parents were kind of fair weather Christians. And I think
Shout out to Johnny Gill, anyway.
I think that it was just like Easter and Christmas if they happened to get to bed in time. So my sister and I would try to trick them into staying up late. Anytime they threatened to go to church, we would get them to stay up late so they'd sleep in.
That sounds like something that you would orchestrate.
Oh, we would do it. My sister's 6 years younger, and we both realized that this was not our gig. But it was funny. I remember my parents being entertained at that film and not really being clear. I don't think that I really know what my parents stand on that, despite my knowing who they tend to vote for. But it was probably about then. It was from a young age. But I was also reading like Maya Angelou, and I was reading about all these texts by feminists that had breast cancer. So for whatever reason, I feel like I was very in 5th and 6th grade, kind of knew a lot about problems faced by women.
I'm sure as a kid, I heard the term, and I'm sure it had negative connotations. But my first memory was being 17 and a high school friend. At that point, we were both in college. So after graduation, we both went off to college. I was 17, she was 18. She became pregnant, and then... the long story short, she got an abortion at 27 weeks.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And I remember that being like a huge thing that everyone had really strong opinions on. I remember my mom being very like critical of her, rightfully so, because it's like, that's a long time to decide whether or not you have this baby. But back then I recall it being like the worst thing she could do is get an abortion and having it done that late. But I don't know. And so, I was influenced by what I heard as a 17-year-old. So I'm sure at that point I thought like, oh, what she's doing is not right. But then I think...
but it was right for her, I think.
But it was right for her. But then, so that was 17. And then maybe like a year and a half later, because I was 19, I was working at a bank and I made a friend. And this friend became pregnant and needed to terminate the pregnancy and couldn't afford it. So that was one of like 5 times that I paid to help a friend get an abortion. But that first time I remember talking to her, and that's when I realized that this is a decision that really a person who can get pregnant needs to be able to make safely and affordably. And like really...
And it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about who she works with.
How she became pregnant. I mean, I don't want to keep talking about it because I'm just going to get upset and rant.
No, but I think, for anybody that needs to hear it, we've been through worse as people that aren't able to have our needs met, and we'll get there again.
For anyone listening, I mean, I definitely, I think it's important for people to know that there are people out there like myself, and you would agree for yourself, who are outraged and certainly don't think that. I mean, this is an attack on women. I mean, certainly
it is, and being politicized, and Clarence Thomas can go fuck himself. But we live in a state of California where that the abortion will be services will be made available to women, but I don't know. I do fantasize. God, I wish it was easy to learn how to perform abortions. Because if I had all the money in the world, that's the kind of shit I would finance. That's what I would want to be involved in. Like, it doesn't matter if it's illegal. Much like the Janes kind of. To me, that is noble work. But
I agree. But it's just what makes me sad is that when situations like this happen, we can't rely on the state government, like as a whole, the concept of government.
Well,
to protect the people. Like, why are issues like this and trans folks and gay rights and all that being politicized when really they need to focus on education, the economy, healthcare?
Right.
These are what politicians and lawmakers should be focused on. I think not people's bodies and their expression of their body.
I think it's a good example too of how we can't depend on the federal government to look out for us, obviously, but how also how county, state elections are important, and getting out there and voting and making sure that you're aware of the issues. And I'm guilty of this myself. All of a sudden, sometimes it's there's an election around the corner, and I really have no idea about any of these candidates so on many an occasion, as you know, have scrambled to figure out who are these people on this ballot. But I think that we all have to get in the habit of at least doing that.
All right, well, moving to something less aggravating. Not aggravating at all, but we get a lot of nice messages individually on various platforms and to the Fish Jelly email address and the Instagram account. So I just wanted to acknowledge them. People really have nice, sweet things to say, but in particular, because there are a lot of platforms and there's a lot going on, I miss things. And I just noticed this morning that I missed a message on Anchor that was sent to us exactly 1 year ago today from someone who watches our YouTube videos, who sent a very nice message. And I don't want to say who it is because, that would be weird. But the message was basically they consider us friends and they enjoy our humor and our dynamic, and that it sort of helped them
with
better understand their own sexuality.
Yeah.
And then come out to family. I'm trying to be vague because you never know if people want things to be said. But I thought that was very sweet and nice to hear. And
yeah, I agree. It's touching. Yeah.
Yeah. And I kind of don't, I'm at a loss for words, which is rare. But but my overall thought is that that's very sweet. And, actually my overall thought is doing the podcast and making YouTube videos has been so nice because of all of the people who it seems like I would be friends with. So that feels nice because in my real life, I don't have many friends. So to think that there are so many people out there who I would probably be friends with, that's nice. But then it's also weird because it's when would I have the occasion to ever meet people? And sometimes people send such lovely messages and it's I wish, you wish you could actually meet them. And that's, it's just not possible, right?
No, but sometimes you do. I've been in, a couple different places where somebody will come up and say something and,
Yeah, it's lovely when it happens. I'm not saying it can't happen because I don't want it to. I'm just saying, like, logistically, with how time and space works, it's just not possible. Like,
I think this whole experience is also, I feel, strengthened my resolve in myself as well, and
how so?
my articulating opinions and kind of being less afraid of what it's funny that there's a lot of people that say the exact opposite to us too, but which also fuels the flame of just you have to be yourself, to be myself, to be authentic, to be say what you mean.
I agree. I think knowing that I'm being recorded and like there's a record of the things I say, it's forced me to be more honest and like which breeds consistency. So I think it's the fact that I became aware that I need to be consistent has made me be more honest and also careful with what I say. So I'm sure people don't believe this, but I do try to think before I speak, and I try to speak honestly because I don't want to seem stupid and like a liar when, I've made hundreds of videos and then my opinions and things change every 5 videos. So it has made me, I think about things more and come from a more authentic place. I mean, obviously, part of my personality is to be kind of silly. I'm not pretending that I don't know things, but I'm very comfortable in not always being right, or I have a bad memory. I'm not the smartest guy. I'm not going to pretend that I am.
Oh.
So it's like I'm just being myself.
Sure, your usual self-deprecating self. But I think also learning not to beat myself up so much when I do get something wrong or I wasn't. Or usually some kind of detail. That's why we have the sorry to this man section.
Well, this would be a good segue. I wanted to talk quickly because, every, once a month, one of our videos will get more views. Based on the frequency of when we release YouTube videos.
Oh, boy.
Once a month, there's one that gets more views. And usually that's the one that people, just statistically, because more people watch it, there are more comments. But our Elvis video, I've had to delete so many comments because people are mad. And it's all I wanted to say is I don't even know what I want to say except that I find it funny.
Well, what are they mad? See, I think
people are mad because a lot of anytime it's about race, people get very upset, and it's usually people who might be the ethnicity of the person who's the subject.
Don't come. All these white people that don't want us to come for Elvis. And to be clear,
but
I don't think we were.
did, because I explicitly said I don't know enough about the artist to make any claims about his attitude towards black people. The point I was trying to make is the filmmaker also doesn't make any assessments. He just sort of presents this person as someone who liked black people.
Do I think that Elvis, maliciously stole music from black people? No, but he was growing up in a context of, he came up in a context where it was also possible to do that. And even though he did open the doors because of his style and maybe did things that were directly associated with opening doors up for certain people, it's not depicted in this film. And I don't think that Baz Luhrmann, for an artist who, one of the major components of the mythos about him is this contentious relationship with his style that's rooted in black music. So why it isn't addressed head on or a little more finesse is where I'm confused, and that opens up the possibility of conversations, because the filmmaker, like Priscilla Presley's age when she met Elvis, they're trying to whitewash it.
Well, that's my issue as well, is that I don't have a problem with Elvis. I'm not calling Elvis racist or that he stole anything. I'm questioning the filmmaker, and why would you tell this story in a way that presents we have a lot of questions when you show this young white guy who grew up around like poor black people, and then we see throughout his younger adult life seeking out black people, and then you don't address it when in pop culture there is this thing hanging over Elvis about how he may have whatever, or may have not. I mean, whatever. The filmmaker doesn't explain it, so I also agree. Like, why even include that if you're not going to
address it? It's not like how everybody knows Marilyn Monroe agreed to attend the Formosa Cafe every so often if they would let Etta James perform or whatever. There aren't stories like that about Elvis.
I don't know that there aren't. I don't know about Elvis. That's why I'm saying that people's critique and being upset is like, I don't know. I didn't call Elvis racist. I don't think that he stole from black people because I don't know. All I'm saying is the filmmaker chose to show a side of this character and then not explain the obvious questions the audience might have. Well, audience members who give a shit about that. Because if you just love Elvis and you don't think racism exists or whatever, then of course you don't care. But yeah, I don't think racist. I don't know enough about Elvis to make any claims. That's why in the review I said I wish it would have just focused on either his upbringing and his relationship with urban soul gospel music.
What we need to remember is white people love to celebrate white people that have appropriated black things and black culture. Like that is, you've seen it with, who's that? Macklemore and Iggy Azalea and Eminem, and they'll, with great fervor, like...
That's not true. That's not how deep I'm trying to go with it. I just think that what I was going to say is that people don't listen. Like, you just want to be mad, and you hear one comment that's not 100% in your, doesn't mimic your opinion 100%.
Well, and then I also feel like we left it open as like, I don't know how... to what responsibility you want to hold Elvis in this period for speaking to that when he wasn't really able to eat. They lassoed him as well. So yes, I just think that it needs to be part of the conversation. Otherwise, that's whitewashing.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to something more frivolous. RuPaul's Drag Race.
Oh, God.
All-Star 7, the all-winners season.
Well, there's a lot of race issues involved with that shit, too.
So episode 7... was the legendary legend looks. So all of the queens had to replicate one of RuPaul's sort of legendary looks, and there were 8 looks to choose from.
We're really stretching the use of the word legendary, by the way.
Who won the last episode? Or no, who got to choose?
Trinity chose.
Did she?
Yeah, because Trinity chose Evie to get the gauntlet, whatever the plunger.
Oh, so Trinity got to choose all the queen's looks?
Oh no, the Vivian chose first, and then they went down the line.
But why did the Vivian get to choose first?
Because she won the week before.
That's right. That's what I was asking. Okay. Anyway, so they replicate these looks. I was not impressed with anyone. I was pretty disappointed in almost all the looks.
I think Trinity looked good. Who's the other winner?
Jada Essence Hall.
She looked good too.
I love Jada's the dress she made. I hated the hair. Trinity's dress was amazing. She looked amazing. The Vivian also looked great. I didn't like her shoes. But the rest of them I thought looked pretty silly. But this episode, more than any of the 7, it was very obvious that the judges are not trying to give any negative critiques, which makes it difficult because based on the critiques, you would think all 7 are going to win.
Right, and then you get all these sound bites of, was it Ross Matthews telling Evie, "You're so watchable." Okay. What does that mean? Exactly.
You walked down the runway.
Yeah,
yes, I did.
See, yes, that's the problem that we get to, and isn't it because the queen said they didn't want to be criticized?
However, I understand that if you're going to produce a show with all winners, meaning people you determine to be the best, it doesn't make sense to then bring them back on and criticize them, because it's like, well, then why the fuck did you choose these people? So it kind of makes sense to me that they are being very light with the criticisms. It just, as the audience, it's very difficult because we're accustomed on a regular season to knowing what they really think and who's probably in the bottom and who's in the top.
Now you have to go to things like the pit stop where you get honest opinions about all these outfits.
Right.
Yeah.
But in the top were Jada and Trinity. They lip synced to a song by Jessie J called "I Want Love." I didn't know that song. I didn't like it. Trinity wins the lip sync, which made sense to me.
Yeah, yeah.
And then who did she give the plunger to?
Evie, I think.
Evie. But after this episode, now Jada has the most stars of anyone, which I love. Because the way I thought it was going to play out and the way she was kind of being treated, like, oh, you're so cute and no one's threatened by her, no one thought that she was going to be in the top. And now she, more than halfway through the season is the queen with the most stars. So I like that. Moving on, we watched the premiere episode of Drag Race France.
Yes.
Overall, what did you think?
It suffers. It has the same kind of problems that all these other offshoots have. It's
Which are?
Not as polished. The queens seem pretty rough around the edges. Also very monotonous and derivative because we're doing the exact same things they do in the first episodes of all the shows. So if you have like a semi-decent memory, like terrible photo shoots where all the photos kind of look in the first mini challenge look, silly. It just felt a little bit lackluster.
I agree. The host of Drag Race France is Nikki Doll, who was on season 12 of US Drag Race. Nikki Doll placed 10th. So she didn't make it to the finale like Brooklyn Heights did, who hosts Canada.
I don't think she should even be hosting Canada either.
I don't think Brooklyn should be hosting Canada either. But that's an interesting choice. I will say, though, Nikki did a fine job. She definitely seemed more poised than she did on US Drag Race as a contestant. That being said, all of these offshoots are mimicking what RuPaul does, and none of them are RuPaul. None of them are as beautiful or as charismatic or as captivating as RuPaul. So then it's just like watching someone do like a lame imitation. The only person who I think makes it their own is
Fred.
Fred from Holland.
Yeah.
He just makes it his own.
Because that is a personality.
And Fred, I have to say, I really like Fred. Like, if RuPaul stopped hosting Drag Race and Fred wanted to do US Drag Race, I would not be mad.
I like Fred, especially, because who was Brooklyn's little sidekick on Canada season 2? The one who...
Melcher, the one with the wig and the nose?
No, the little white gay one. That looks like Neil Patrick. He's in that Neil Patrick Harris mold.
Oh, Brad Goreski.
Brad Goreski.
He's cute.
He's sweet enough, but like going on and on about in one episode about what a personality Brooklyn is. It's like,
when? Not on the show. You mean at the bar?
Yeah, I guess we don't see that.
When y'all are at home watching Dream or what's that movie?
Dream Girls.
No, what's the movie all the gays like?
Girls Will Be Girls.
Mean Girls.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
With Lilo. The Fred is a favorite, but Nikki Doll did okay.
She did okay.
It was kind of interesting seeing Jean-Paul Gaultier, though.
Well, I'm probably not... I don't think that I'm going to continue watching Drag Race France, or certainly not weekly, so I'm not going to go into it, but it was very standard, like you said, all the same beats. The first episode, the guest judge was Jean-Paul Gaultier, which is pretty impressive, and the challenge was... Well, they all had to do like their talent, which is a common first episode task on All Stars. I wasn't whatever. And then the runway was inspired by Jean-Paul Gaultier. So of course most of these queens came out with cone titties. But it was interesting to see him. The lip sync was to a Celine Dion song in French I had never heard. That wasn't that great.
No.
So yeah, I don't know. Oh, and we watched it on Wow Presents Plus. And I don't know who translated the captioning, but it was unintelligible.
Yes.
Like 30% of it was just words. It wasn't like typos or what's the format? It wasn't formatted.
It's the translation.
It was literally the translation. It was just words that don't seem to make sense together. So yeah. Anyway, okay. We don't have anything in the Sorry to This Man section. So we'll talk about films that were released we didn't cover. First is a restoration of Lost Highway.
Yeah, David Lynch's 1997 film, which is opening this weekend in New York and LA. And so I actually wrote a piece on that for Ion Cinema, which I was hoping... Well, haven't read it yet, but I actually quite liked that. And it was actually fun to revisit.
I will definitely read it.
I haven't seen it since then. And I have to say it holds up quite well, I thought.
Something called Biba.
Biba, it's a documentary, I think that played at TIFF last year, directed by Rebecca Hunt, about a young woman who's half Venezuelan and Dominican, I believe. And I don't know anything more about the subject of the documentary than that. I was begged to review it, and I just somehow never got around to it. Olga, it's about a 15-year-old Ukrainian...
This is the third movie.
Yeah. There's another film called Olga opening this weekend about a 15-year-old Ukrainian gymnast who's exiled in Switzerland because the Euromaidan breaks out in her country while she's doing that. I saw that in Critics Week at the 2019 Cannes Film Festival, and I remember it being okay, but we didn't get to that. There's another film called Press Play that's opening this weekend, directed by Greg Bjorkman. And it's about a young woman who has the chance to save her life because she discovers that the mixtape she made with her old lover can transport her back in time.
That's right. Yes.
And I'm forgetting who's in that. Anyway.
And lastly, something called Rise.
It's on Disney Plus, directed by Akin Omotoso. It's a true story about a family that produced the first trio of brothers to become NBA champions. Right. I feel like you know how that's going to play. But
okay, movies you watch for fun. Something called Breakout.
Oh, yes. So Kino Lorber had sent me this on Blu-ray, 1975 Charles Bronson vehicle, kind of based on a true story, directed by Tom Grease, also starring Randy Quaid, and Charles Bronson's wife Jill Ireland, and John Huston and Robert Duvall. It's about a mobster who has his son arrested and held in a Mexican prison, and so Robert Duvall is the son, John Huston the father, and the wife, Jill Ireland, hires this pilot played by Charles Bronson to rescue him. I was really interested in watching this because it stars Cherie North as a woman named Myrna, who's she's married to the local sheriff, but Charles Bronson is kind of like an old fuck buddy, I guess, and wants to hire her to pose as a prostitute for his plan to get Robert Duvall out of this Mexican prison. So there's a lot of shenanigans over that because the sheriff husband was really against that. But I had an old coworker who is a black woman who told me, oh yeah, I was named after the actress Cherie North. And I'm like, but Cherie North is white, which I found so interesting. And I've seen her in films that have never paid attention, like Charlie Varick starring Walter Matthau. I remember being a good film, but don't remember her. I only remember Walter Matthau, and Lawman with Burt Lancaster. And of course, she'd been around since the 50s. She was actually kind of my favorite part because I find Jill Ireland kind of boring. But because I sent you a bunch of screenshots from that movie. There were a lot of good lines.
Next, Good Girl Jane.
That won the Tribeca Film Festival, set in 2005, about this young girl who's led astray because she falls in love with the local drug dealer. And her mother's played by Andie MacDowell in a performance that I kind of liked from Andie MacDowell. But yeah, that won Tribeca, and I watched it last week.
Next is a movie called Cursed, which is a 2005 film directed by
Wes Craven, written by Kevin Williamson.
A friend came over on Thursday, and this was the film we decided to watch while eating spicy bolognese pasta. And you bought... There's a place called Pie Hole on Hollywood and Vine, and you bought...
a very expensive pie that I know I could remake for a third of the price.
That thing was almost $50.
Yeah.
And it was a Thai tea pie.
Yeah.
It was good.
It was very good.
But those prices, I mean...
well, especially learning that the crust is made of crushed up cereal.
If anyone from Pie Hole is listening, send me some free pies to make me feel better about that purchase.
No, it was good.
It was good. I just thought it was way overpriced.
Oh, yes. Especially because it's no damn strawberry rhubarb.
Anyway, Cursed stars a lot of really cool people. It's basically about werewolves.
Yeah.
But the stars are Christina Ricci.
Yeah. Jesse Eisenberg.
Jesse Eisenberg, that's right. Shannon Elizabeth,
Judy Greer, Milo Ventimiglia.
Oh, Milo Ventimiglia, like he's gay in the movie. He plays a bully who's always calling someone a fag, and then it turns out he's gay, of course.
Of course.
But yeah, there are a lot of really cool people in it. The special effects are hit or miss, but I actually really enjoyed that movie.
Some of them are good. Portia de
Rossi's in it.
Maya.
Oh, how could I forget Maya?
How could you? Well, it's so distracting because they style Maya and Shannon Elizabeth.
And Shannon Elizabeth look the same, and then they both get killed. Spoiler alert! And it's like there's a news story on the TV, and they both look like they put their pictures side by side. It's like
those
it
bangs.
Looks like twins.
Yeah. Joshua Jackson.
Joshua Jackson's in it.
Scott.
And the guy Scott Baio's in it
as
playing
himself.
And then who's the guy
Nick
who
Offerman.
dated my coworker?
Oh, from the
Lex Luthor.
Is that Eric Layden? No, that's not him.
That's not him.
No, he was also in Sorority Boys. I'd have to look.
Okay.
Yeah, he's in it, and so is Nick Offerman.
That's right. But yeah, I would if it's streaming somewhere. Like, I would definitely like. I think it's a fun like Friday night movie.
I had really good memories of it because I think I was a sophomore in college when that came out, and I had rented it from Hollywood Video, and I was very surprised at the positive gay representation somewhat, and it's scraps. The shit is scraps, but it also felt very nice at the time. I don't know that it's aged well. It's definitely a B movie.
There is a fourth movie on the list, which relates to our secret movie. I'm just gonna say it. We watched the 1991 made-for-television crime drama film "Murder in New Hampshire," the Pamela Smart Story.
The Pamela Wojas Smart Story.
The Pamela Wojas Smart Story.
As the credits tell.
But
Michael Rosenbaum is the actor you're thinking of.
Oh, sure. It's available on Prime for a cost, but it was interesting. Chad Allen played. Well, for people who don't know the Pamela Smart Story, she was like a 20-something-year-old. Like, she worked at a school, and she got into a sexual relationship with a 15-year-old boy, with the plan of getting this boy to kill her husband, and he does, and then she gets convicted for like accomplice to first-degree murder. It's an interesting.
Yes, that was a very interesting scandal. There was a media scandal at the time, obviously.
But we can talk about it more when we talk about the secret movie, I suppose, because we can talk about comparisons or whatever. But before we get there, projects of interest.
Oh, yeah.
The Good House.
Oh, the Sigourney Weaver film that you've already seen, but we forgot to mention.
What is that about?
Where she plays the alcoholic real estate agent.
Oh, I enjoyed that movie.
Yeah, I did a lot as well.
Yeah.
It's going to come out this September, finally, and it was picked up right before it had its North American premiere, Tribeca, by Lionsgate and Roadside Attractions. I'm hoping that's coming out in September. I'm hoping there's some awards buzz for her because she's really good in it.
She is good in it. And I would watch it again because it was kind of fun to watch her be like
just this boozy drunk.
She's not like it's not campy, but
no.
But I think it's just fun to see her in a lead role where she's being kind of like difficult.
Yeah, and she looks great.
Fantastic. Yeah,
and they even show she's in a flashback from like 2 decades.
Oh, because she has a love interest played by
Kevin Kline.
Kevin Kline, that's right. Moving on, something called Holland, Michigan.
So back in 2013, this was a big blacklist script that Errol Morris was going to direct, starring Naomi Watts, and it's finally now moving forward again, starring Nicole Kidman, directed by Mimi Cave, whose first film was Fresh, starring Sebastian Stan.
Next is something called Road Rage.
John McNaughton, who I maintain his best film is Wild Things, which Arrow Video just put out on a great new Blu-ray restoration, which I'm hoping we'll actually watch soon as well, because I've kind of had a hankering to rewatch that movie. He's reuniting with Michael Rooker, who he directed in Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, which I find is a film that is hard to watch, for a film called Road Rage.
Lastly, El Conde.
Pablo Larraín, I guess a favorite Chilean, is going back to...
A favorite Chilean, okay.
The Chilean New Wave. Well, he's he did Jackie and Spencer. So now he's going back to Chile, back to the reign of Pinochet for this very interesting film that is going to discuss there was a hypothesis that Pinochet was a 235-year-old vampire.
Oh, well,
So that's all I know about it.
It's always good to ponder options and possibilities.
Sure.
Thankfully, there are no entries in the obituary section. However, I did want to share a story. My mom likes to tell stories, not unlike how I like to talk. But her style of storytelling and mine are like the exact opposite. Because I like to sort of like tell a story where there's like a gag, like there's something at the end. And my mom likes to front load everything to get your attention. And then she just leads you along for this long ass ride. And then in the end, it's like, okay. So she calls me this morning with very serious news. I'm not going to get into the story except to say that she tells this long story that culminates with like some children dying. And then it turns out that I don't know these children. I don't know the mother of the children. I barely know the person who's dating this woman. And then it was all related to like, I'm going to an event tomorrow where I thought maybe someone who knew these people would be there. And then it turns out they're not going to be there.
Nobody affiliated with...
No one affiliated with this story will be there. But the way she presented it was like, I need to tell you something in preparation for tomorrow in case it gets brought up. So of course I'm all ears. And then when she's finished, it's like literally there is no chance that this would come up in a topic of conversation.
Like, are you going to be quizzed? Like, is there potentially going to be quizzed on it by a family member?
So, thinking about the obituaries.
Because they don't know a lot about anything we're doing either.
Okay. That could be a topic too about...
Like, so I don't know about your strategy, but you also don't know about mine. Did you see I had a new section called Ick?
Oh shit! Did I skip something? Hold on. What did I skip? So you just decided we're gonna have a new section?
Yeah, because I was so bothered.
Well, I'll allow it this one time, and then I'll have to think about it. So you've added a new section called Ick. What is the purpose of this section?
I read they're moving forward with a Hunger Games prequel called The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which...
So this is something like things that you just are disgusted by.
Yes, we don't need that. But I think I was bothered at as usual with these things, the character names, because there's a character named Coriolanus Snow, which is just gonna take from a Shakespearean play. So it's like, does that mean we're gonna have Hamlet Everdeen and Macbeth Everdeen?
I know I watched one Hunger Games movie.
Yeah, because we saw the first one together in the theater.
Is Julianne Moore in that one?
Julianne Moore's in the third one.
So then I must have
which is split into two parts.
So there are 4 Hunger Games movies?
There are 4 Hunger Games because they remember when they were splitting the last
What's the one with the little black girl that Jennifer Lawrence is trying to help and then the little black girl dies? Is that the first one?
Oh, God. I think
that's
the first one.
I know I've seen one with the little black girl who dies, and then I know I saw one with Julianne Moore.
And Jenna Malone's in one of them.
Which one is Lenny Kravitz in?
Oh, I don't remember. I can't differentiate.
He's like a stylist, like a hairstylist.
And then the first one is directed by Gary Ross, and I think the second guy is the guy that did... Is it Francis Lawrence?
I don't know. I'm not going to pretend that...
But remember we saw Kristen... oh my God! Why am I...
Kirsten Dunst?
Kirsten Dunst was... I remember smoking her American...
back at the ArcLight.
Smoking her American Spirits outside of the... Hunger Games premiere.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend that I thought all of the movies I saw were trash because I don't remember them. I'm sure I was moderately entertained.
Peter.
Okay, we need to move on. So The Secret Film is a film that was brought up to us a number of times. So I finally... It's not that I was resistant to watching it. I just, with my memory, whenever it's my turn to choose a movie, I freeze. Mm-hmm. And I'm like... Let's watch Surviving Compton because I can't think of anything. But this time I finally remembered a movie someone suggested because, I don't write shit down. To Die For.
Which you've seen before.
Which I had seen before and didn't remember. It's the 1995 film directed by Gus Van Sant.
His fifth
film. What has he done something I've seen?
You haven't seen My Own Private Idaho? Or Elephant?
With Keanu Reeves?
Yeah.
Is Elephant the one or is that Trunk?
Elephant.
What's the one with Justin Long where he turns into a walrus?
That's Tusk.
Oh, that's Tusk. What's Elephant?
Trunk, I think, is an Alejandro Jodorowsky film.
Young Sherman. Someone commented how whenever I try to conjure things, I'm kind of close in the ballpark. Trunk. Elephant stars who?
That's about that one can. That's about the Columbine, basically.
I don't know that.
Oh,
I don't know. I don't know what Last Days is. I don't know what Promised Land is.
oh my God,
I don't know what Paranoid Park is.
Paranoid Park's pretty good.
He remade Psycho
He did remake Psycho
with Vince Vaughn.
Yep, and Julianne Moore, and in the Janet Leigh character is Anne Heche.
Well, he is gay and lives in Los Feliz, which is just a hop, skip, and a jump from where we are. So maybe I'll bump into him. We can talk about it.
I don't know. He's pretty pretentious.
Oh, is he?
I think. And I think he's also lost his touch. But
To Die For stars Nicole Kidman,
who won a Golden Globe for her performance,
Joaquin Phoenix, and Matt Dillon,
among many others.
So this movie is, I guess, loosely based on the Pamela.
Well, it's based on a book by Joyce Maynard.
Oh, it's based on a book?
Yeah, a fictional account of Pamela Smart. But Joyce Maynard, who appears as Nicole's lawyer, I believe, in the film. Her only other book that she's had adapted is a really poor adaptation of Labor Day, starring Kate Winslet and Josh Brolin, directed by Jason Reitman. But yes.
So if we compare To Die For, the story, with, what the media depicted as the Pamela Smart, or Short, what's her name? Smart. The Pamela Smart story, and what we saw in that movie.
With Helen Hunt.
What's the name of that movie? New Hampshire.
Murder in New Hampshire.
Murder in New Hampshire. Okay. They're very similar.
The bones are similar, yeah.
So I'll just tell To Die For. So Nicole Kidman plays a reporter named Suzanne Stone. Well, she's a woman named Suzanne Stone who has big ambitions. Mm-hmm. She shoots for the stars. She ends up dating a guy played by Matt Dillon, whose parents own an Italian restaurant. Mm-hmm. And they get married. She has her eye on the prize. She wants to be famous, and she wants to be famous by being on TV. And she decides that she needs to basically get rid of her husband in order to achieve her goals. So she seduces a teenage boy played by Joaquin Phoenix, mm-hmm. And convinces him to kill her husband, mm-hmm. and he does. She goes to trial, but the agents who they did wiretapping and other means of like recording her talking about the murder, they obtained those in an illegal fashion. So her trial was like thrown out. So Suzanne Stone was not convicted. She was free. Mm-hmm. So the film is sort of balanced around Suzanne doing an interview after the murder has occurred, after she's not, she doesn't have to go to jail, and she's telling her story. Mm-hmm. And it's clear that she's waiting for like she's talking to Hollywood types.
Like a documentarian.
Yeah, but she's telling them
somebody's interviewing all the
someone's
players.
Gonna make a movie about me, and all like she's very excited about all the prospects. And then the final gag is the family of her dead husband, who we were at one point told they may have mob affiliations. They do put a hit out on her, and she gets killed.
By David Cronenberg, no less.
By David Cronenberg, the end. So it's pretty similar to the actual story, except that in real life, Pamela Smart was convicted of being an accomplice to first-degree murder. She was sentenced to prison. She's still in prison. And then there were like 5 people who assisted.
There were more boys.
There were more boys who helped, and a lot of them got time. But because they testified against her, I believe all of them are out of jail now.
Yeah, she's the only one still.
She's the only one still in there. And then in the actual Pamela Smart worked. She was younger than what Nicole Kidman seems to be in the movie, mm-hmm. and Nicole
Kidman's Suzanne Stone is ironically smarter than Pamela Smart.
Pamela Smart is like a media coordinator at a school, mm-hmm. and doesn't really seem to have aspirations of being like a celebrity. She just wants to be free to do what she wants to do. So the way the TV movie explains that lady's story, it seems like there was kind of an attraction to this 15-year-old boy, and then she took advantage of him, mm-hmm. versus in To Die For, it's very clear that Nicole Kidman's character is manipulating mm-hmm. this boy.
Well, and also because you question, like, why doesn't she just get a divorce? She get alimony. But not only does she want to not lose anything, you can tell that she wants to be part of this media firestorm as well.
Well, that's what I want.
Because I think that's what the Gus Van Sant is also trying to make a statement about is, because of this period we had like Amy Fisher and Pamela Smart and Lorena Bobbitt, and we had OJ, and.
After watching this movie, I think what hit me the hardest is this concept of celebrity, which seems so relevant today.
Yes.
And the idea that people will do anything to be famous.
Well, the end of this film feels very prescient.
Yes, and then watching the TV movie, but even Suzanne Stone, Nicole Kidman's character, is not an intelligent woman.
No,
she's cunning.
She's conniving,
but she's not intelligent. And it's like, it's very interesting when we think about within the last 10 years and how reality TV stars have become like bona fide celebrities. And I know last week talking about Jennifer Aniston saying that people who have no talent are famous, and she's not wrong. It's just coming from her, it feels a little shady. But yeah, it's just like this woman, Suzanne Stone, thought that she deserved to be somebody, even though she didn't seem to understand a lot of things and had no real talent. She wasn't particularly good at public speaking. She wasn't good at delivering the news on TV because her character does get a job doing cable access news as the weather girl, and she's not good at it. So it's I think that's what hit me the hardest relating to today. It feels very prescient, just how everyone wants to be famous and have no discernible skills. Could I go through my notes really quickly?
Sure.
So when we first meet Suzanne, it's very obvious she is shady as hell. We see her meeting Matt Dillon's sister, played by
Ileana Douglas,
who I liked.
Yes.
I thought the casting was really good. Yeah, right away that this lady is no good. You know what I learned from this movie? The current Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, his father, Pierre Trudeau, was the Prime Minister of Canada. I did not know that. That's kind of cool. And then in the movie, I tried to look it up. Why do they even bring up Trudeau?
Because one of his wives.
Because I tried to look up his wives, and I don't see that he had more than one.
It was about surnames.
Something like that. But that was an interesting fact that I got from this movie. So getting back to what I thought the message was. So Joaquin Phoenix has two friends, one played by Casey Affleck and the other by some lady.
Allison, it was her debut, Allison Folland.
And it's the three of them who sort of are part of this web that Suzanne is weaving. And the girl, because they're all being filmed for
she's making a documentary for TV, she says.
And she says that Suzanne would always say, what's the point of doing anything worthwhile if no one is watching? And I feel like that's very much, that feels like today.
And how Suzanne envisioned a world in which everybody would be on TV.
There are a lot of really fun moments because initially it's told documentary style. Some of the people in Matt Dillon and Nicole Kidman's characters' lives are talking family and
then there's talking heads. Yeah.
Yes. So we see the sister, Matt Dillon's sister, saying she didn't like Nicole from the jump. And tried to convince him. And then we get a scene where they're all, after they've gotten married, both families are at the house. And the sister's trying to explain, I got a gig, because she's a professional ice skater. I'm going on tour. I'm really excited. They're telling me that maybe we might actually, do some stuff for TV. And then everything gets interrupted to say that Nicole got a gig. And I thought that was very interesting, like a really well done scene, because it kind of showed how that character is obsessed with getting ahead.
Well, being the center of attention.
And being the center of attention. Because you think, when you watching the TV movie about Pamela Smart, it's what was this lady thinking? It's so stupid. And because it's real life, we're the dramatization of this real life story in the TV movie, it's not as salacious as To Die For. But in To Die For, it's very clear that this woman wants attention. So I think it's a really well done script. Then there's another scene where it's explained that when Suzanne and her husband go on their honeymoon, she orchestrates it so they're at a hotel where there's a conference of like news broadcasters, and she meets some guy,
George Segal,
and he tells her a story about how some famous female journalist, when she was getting started, went to like a TV station executive and handed him a letter from her old boss that basically said like, give her your full consideration. Because she's someone who can suck cock until your eyes pop out. And then George Segal, is that his name? He tells her, and do you know who that person is? And then he whispers in her ear like somebody like big, like Oprah or something. But then the gag is she wrote that letter. So then we cut to Nicole Kidman
trying to pull this stunt on Wayne Knight.
And I thought that was a really good scene. And I think Newman
of Seinfeld.
I thought his character was really funny.
He's like, I called her gangbusters.
Yeah, she goes to his little like cable TV station and tries to pull the same stunt, but then he basically kicks her out because she's annoying, but then ultimately hires her. And then we hear him saying, because he's giving an interview after she's been like killed, and so he has like her desk with her box of stuff, and he's like, well, there's her box of files. She was always working on her ideas. She had like idea files, and then that little montage of her giving him her ideas I thought was really good.
You know what I like about that? It also, showcases a world where you had to be conniving. There were a lot of missteps because you had to go on what other people told you. Like she's naive, right?
Yeah.
So that she thinks that this letter business would work, but there wasn't no other way for her to kind of look for inspiration.
Can we pause for 1 second? Okay. So Suzanne, her character is not... Nicole Kidman playing this character does a very good job, but I think the character of Suzanne Stone is intended to not be very captivating, which again, I think supports this idea of like this person who told her she's supposed to be a star? Like she has it in her head, but really every time we see her like talking on like her little cable show or talking in front of the students because she has to go, the person who wrote the screenplay,
Buck Henry,
who we saw in the movie from last week,
The Man Who Fell to Earth,
he plays David Bowie's like lawyer.
He's the patent lawyer in that movie.
I think he did a great job.
Yeah, he's the principal of this school.
He's like, he works at this school, and he Suzanne Stone approaches him like, I want to do a documentary. Can I talk to your students? We see her interacting with these students several times, not captivating.
No.
At all.
Can't control the room. Really.
Can't control the room. Can't get anyone's attention, except that she's beautiful. So we do see people look at her in that way. And I just thought that's such a... it's just so interesting. And I think very well done to have this. Obviously, Nicole Kidman's a beautiful woman. So, when you see her on the screen, it gets your attention and she's giving a great performance. But this character is written in a way that's like, she's
reptilian. She's a predator.
Yeah.
She's calculating in every moment.
Okay, there's a scene where there's like a barbecue happening and all the family's there. And isn't that the scene where Nicole's talking about being pregnant? And how gross it is.
How gross it is, yeah.
Like, oh my God.
Because her mother-in-law's...
like, when are you going to have a baby? I really want grandchildren. And she's like, oh my God, wouldn't that mess up my career? What if like I'm in New York or LA and then her mother-in-law's like, what? You're New York, LA? She's like, yeah. And then I have to go off to like wherever, Iraq, and do some on the spot, whatever. She's like, I can't do that with a big old belly. So gross. And then after I have the baby, like this flabby belly and big old breasts, like, ugh, disgusting. I was like, oh my God.
Oh God, the decor of everything too. They hand her that one plastic glass with some...
Oh, that's what I wanted to know. They hand her a plastic glass or cup at the barbecue. What was in that cup?
I don't know. Something peachy looking.
You thought it looked peachy? I couldn't.
I don't know.
I would really love to know what's in that cup because it looks like diluted urine.
It was making me feel uncomfortable about houses I was in the 90s that I hope I never have to return to in the style in them. But what I liked about that scene is you also feel a bit of pity for her too. And what her options are or what she thinks her options are. And this constant resistance of suburbanization, right?
That's interesting because I felt pity for her, but not in the same way. I felt pity for her because this woman really, like, what must it be like to go through this life with delusions of grandeur and then they're never satisfied?
Well,
Like, what would that be
well,
like?
also not satisfied so cruelly because her husband, wins this trophy wife, right? And she, she connived for him too. She saw him as something to win. And then you just want to lock her up in the house and make her a baby machine? Like, why isn't she allowed to take a class in LA? Why isn't she allowed to explore her interests?
Yeah.
And also, like, if you want a baby so damn bad and she doesn't, that's something you talk about before you get married.
Yeah, the juxtaposition of her, planning this murder versus like, well, she's kind of trapped because she married this man. But then she only wanted him because other people wanted him.
But vice versa, that's what men do to women all the time.
You're right.
So he caught himself a crocodile.
Right,
and then she bit her way out of the trap.
You're right. I mean, that's very interesting. I don't disagree.
But it was in that scene where I felt I was like, oh yeah, I would want to resist that too.
But the only problem with that idea is that she went into that relationship knowing that she was going to use him to get what she needs.
Right.
So you can't feel fully.
No, I don't. No, I mean, that's the dismay. It's like you're a smart, beautiful woman. Like,
well, I don't know how smart she is,
but smart enough to know that you could just divorce him and still do what you want with somebody that can really pay for what you need.
That's the part of the story, even in the TV movie, that didn't fully make sense to me. Is why, because Joaquin Phoenix as her little boyfriend who kills her husband, and then Chad Allen in the TV movie, they both keep asking her, why can't you just divorce him?
Because you'd lose everything.
And then she keeps saying, I'll lose everything.
Including the dog, Walter.
And it's like, well...
Yeah, but she, and then she tied in this story about her husband beating her, which was not true. She was just manipulating them. And I think what you had said when I was expressing that dismay during the film is that she didn't want to be set back in any way. She didn't want to lose anything.
That's how I'm interpreting that character. Is she is on a mission to move forward and higher. So getting divorced would set her back. But in the TV movie, they explained that her husband had a $140,000 life insurance policy. And To Die For, they don't. But we can assume that if her husband is dead, she will gain things.
Well,
she won't lose anything.
it's also unremarkable to be a divorcee, but it is remarkable to be the wife of a senselessly murdered man.
I think in To Die For, she was thinking, because she's making a documentary about these kids, and then the boy is going to kill her husband, but she has made it so that she won't be implicated. So imagine how popular her documentary would be. Like, she basically made a documentary about the boy who killed her husband but didn't know. So I think she knew that this scenario would make her very notable. Mm-hmm. So, that's what made her scary. Okay, Joaquin Phoenix. It's interesting because when we see him in prison with the buzzed head, I thought he was quite attractive. But then when we see him, like, before he's in prison with his little mullet haircut, he looks like a little rodent. He's still very cute.
I thought he was handsome as both, but
he is handsome. But it's just amazing how, like, hair can change someone.
Well, his whole reaction to why he's attracted to Suzanne at first is he says she's clean.
She looks clean because he's kind of grimy.
He is, but he also has that kind of puppy dog thing about him.
Yeah, I mean, he's supposed to be a kid, so I'm not going to say like he's so attractive, but he's a cute little guy. And then when we see him dancing, like the first night she's trying to seduce him, I thought he was so cute with his little moves.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, so she orchestrates his murder on the night of their 1-year wedding anniversary. Yeah. And then at the funeral, this lady brings a boombox and starts playing All By Myself. Yeah. And everyone in the funeral, like, audience, because they're out in, like, the cemetery, are looking at her like, what is wrong with her? Okay, Casey Affleck plays, like I mentioned, the other boy
Russell,
who was part of the little crew. And he did a really good job of seeming, like, disgusting.
Yes. And also just always on the verge of being out of control.
He was my least favorite part of the movie, but when the cops go to arrest him, he's out in, like, the water fishing with his dad. Mm-hmm. And it made no sense to me that the cops, they walk out into the water to arrest him. I don't know why they couldn't just tell him, like, come here.
You need to come in.
Yeah, why can't you just come here? A really good scene is when Suzanne is like when she goes to court. It's a very short moment when we find out that she's not going to go to jail. It's basically she's leaving the courthouse, and all the reporters are asking, and the lawyers explaining that you know she's not going to jail. People people are booing and like, but everything she's hearing is applause.
Yes.
So it's like clearly she just wants to be notable. She doesn't care if she's notorious.
And I like the little speech she gives
Or
on the
infamous.
steps about how she's still happy to live in a country that stands for, she's like, all the things.
Yeah, she's not smart. She's not.
Well, she's not smart because, like, are you really trying to make this TV documentary where you're talking to these grimy teenagers who clearly aren't going to behave? You need to make a avant-garde documentary is what you're trying to make.
Yeah, I enjoyed this movie. I would recommend it. It feels timely.
Well, it's funny that, so, you know, if you think back to 1995, Nicole Kidman is defined at this point as being the wife of Tom Cruise. And there's even a passage in the novel about how Suzanne Stone wanted to be played in the movies by that woman who married Tom Cruise.
Oh.
And ironically, well,
You mean Pamela Smart said that?
no, in the book To Die For,
Oh, really?
Joyce Maynard wrote the character saying that. You know, strangely, this role was offered to Meg Ryan first, which I find would have been not as good. Anyhow, you know, nobody was really taking Nicole Kidman as seriously as a dramatic actress, I think, and this was her big breakthrough. As I said, she won the Golden Globe, and you know, from here, you know, 6 years later, she'd win an Oscar and finally be without Tom Cruise and kind of become the iconic performer that she is. But it was really because of this film, this Gus Van Sant hiring her for this. But looking back, you know, prescient in so many ways, but also its influence on other films of its ilk. Because I wrote down in my notes, she's really giving me, I feel like Reese Witherspoon in Election and Legally Blonde, and come to find Reese Witherspoon cites her research for Election was this performance by Kidman, as well as Charlize Theron in Young Adult. I was also thought many times of Evan Rachel Wood in the film Pretty Persuasion. But also, again, everything that was a media sensation then that made celebrities out of these criminals, like O.J. Simpson and Nicole Brown Simpson, of course. I thought of them a couple times throughout this too.
Yeah. Well, that's all I have for To Die For. Is there anything else you wanted to say about this movie?
It also kind of, I feel mournful for that 90s period of Gus Van Sant when he was really good. You know, he'd worked with Matt Dillon before in Drugstore Cowboy in the late 80s. He would work with Joaquin Phoenix again in Don't Worry, He Won't Get Far on Foot in 2018. But yeah, I don't know. I wish... Oh, the other film that I think that kind of rips off the template of To Die For is I, Tonya, which you have seen.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Rips off.
Oh, this confessional talking heads thing.
I mean, it's interesting that
With kind of a camp flavor, really, in the background.
Yeah. I mean, they do feel similar, but they also involve like popular sort of
Media figures from the same the same period.
Yeah, that involve a crime, and there's like, you know,
And a sense of kind of just the absurd and ridiculousness. And there were a whole bunch of people.
I think I, Tonya is a better movie.
Than To Die For?
To Die For. I think they're on par. I enjoyed both a lot.
I do too. I mean, the Allison Janney performance is a lot of fun in I, Tonya, but I think Nicole Kidman in this is better than Margot Robbie in I, Tonya.
Yes.
Because I always thought Margot Robbie was a little bit too beautiful to play Tonya Harding, but...
Well, and I haven't watched I, Tonya in years, but I think what I recall from that movie is there was a little bit more... I can't speak on it. I don't remember fully. I just recall really enjoying that as well.
I do too, but I think To Die For is smarter in that it's more subtle. And there's a whole bunch of people we didn't even mention, like Dan Hedaya as the father of Matt Dillon, or Kidman's parents played by Holland Taylor and Kurtwood Smith, and Michael Rispoli is one of the investigators. And yeah, I don't know. It was fun to revisit.
All right, so I don't know what's going on next week.
We have some Wednesday releases that we have to get to, including Andrew Dosunmu's Beauty, written by Lena Waithe, and the Rebecca Hall starring Resurrection.
Who's Rebecca Hall?
Oh my God, really? I feel like every time I brought this woman up, you say that. anyway, she directed my number 2 film of last year called Passing, for one, but she's been in a ton of films. But Resurrection, also starring Tim Roth, I'm excited for you to see because I do really like it. And then I think this press screening of the new Thor movie is this week too.
Okay. Do you have a quote for us?
No, as you know, I've been making my way through Camille Paglia's Vamps and Tramps, and how many times have I?
Too many, at the wrong time. But she's an opinionated person.
She is. Like, I don't agree with some of the things she says, and there are quite a few very refreshing statements, but if I have to, I'm only halfway through, but if I have to read one more, because I'm a libertarian, or all of the white suburban middle-class girls that I learned to hate as a teacher, there are so many good passages that, I feel like she couldn't get published today, but...
Yeah, the things you read me, they're a little too spicy.
It's a provocateur, but
like she definitely has a POV and an agenda, and I don't know. I'm assuming people back then might say she had like a chip on her shoulder.
For sure, yeah.
So in that regard, it feels like you're not very. Like, I wish you were just a little more objective.
Yes, she's such a contrarian, and it frames everything so specifically from her experiences that it's like, girl, you're doing the most and you don't need to right now. But I think you also had to be that kind of strident then to break through.
I also... Hearing white people talk about, like, disparagingly about other white people always makes me think, like, oh, so you think you're, like, the exception? Or... it's just very interesting.
Well, and as a lesbian, kind of really knocking down lesbians a lot.
Yeah, she's very... Yeah.
But, I mean, I feel that way in how I think I experience a lot of products, gay creative products as well, is this kind of hypercritical sense of...
I think whenever we're critical of groups we identify with, sometimes what's missing is like empathy.
Yeah, I agree.
And that is hard to hear. Like, she's so critical because, well, I don't want to get into it, but you read me something about like rape culture and how white women need to be more sturdy, and how basically like ethnic people have realized. And I just thought, like, that you talking real loose, lady. Like,
yes.
I don't agree with all of that.
And also you're throwing away, sometimes people aren't ready to hear those kind of things either. But the one quote that I had, middle-class white women have to get over their superiority complex and learn to talk trash with the rest of the human race.
She also has that sort of attitude of like a lot of sort of privileged white people, and privilege as in like they think they're educated or because they have a formal education and they have lived a certain life or had certain experiences, and then they associate like sturdy, resilient people with like ethnic people, and I don't like that.
She speaks in a way that makes me think she hasn't experienced the streets. I get, not that I'm not saying I have, but maybe I feel a little more. I see a lot of myself in some things she says, but also I feel like I have at least more empathy in realizing that you can't just say that. If you haven't experienced some of these things, you can't tell a person who has how to feel. I don't.
Sure, it's okay to have opinions. It's just she has such strong opinions, and it's like, where have you been and what have you done? Like, you can be an intellectual indeed, but like,
oh my God.
I mean, it just seems like she's pulling all this shit out of her ass. Like, what? Like, I need to see her resume. Like,
right.
Is this lady?
But I feel like she probably thinks that if you're reading this, which is her 3rd publication, you already know her resume. But she.
Oh no, right. I don't expect her in her book to explain who she is. I'm saying as someone who only knows her peripherally, like, being in the 90s and like having seen her on TV, I don't know much about her.
She's fascinating. I think she's very intelligent, and she sounds like she'd be a lot of fun to have a rousing argument with, but I have the sense she doesn't like to be wrong. Continually references her 1990 publication Sexual Persona. Also, if you had a drinking game reading through these essays in this publication, libertarian and sexual persona, you die. You die. I wouldn't be able to make it to tomorrow.
Anything else?
No.
Bye.